The Hindu newspaper analysis for today, and the today's topic is India's G20 presidency and food security. I hope you liked my earlier videos, and if you have any queries, please mention me on the comments. Now, let's start our discussion. So, this is the heading India's G20 presidency and the food security. Global and regional food security have been deliberated upon as one of the priority agenda of the G20 for many years. What we have seen, food security is the priority agenda for the G20 since many years. Okay, the situation has worsened with growing conflicts and spiraling climate crisis marked by the drought, floods, cyclones and economic downturns in the past few years. What happens, there were so many challenges in the food security in the form of various conflicts, climate crisis and droughts, floods, cyclones and economic downturns. This is a very good para if you want to utilize it in the mains answer writing. Okay, now next para here. In this context, India's presidency of the G20 offers a historical opportunity for the country to share its successful journey in moving from food deficit nation to the food surplus nation. Very good point. And address the growing challenges of food security for creating the resilient and equitable food system. What happens? We are living in a country, India, and we know how many challenges we have faced since so many years during the time of Britishers and then after independence. And now from the food, a country where they were so much lacking for the various resources, and especially we are talking about here the food. We have seen the transition from the food deficit nation to the food surplus nation. So India is a very good example for that. Okay, are you getting it? Okay, now come to the next para here. In 2021, through the Material Declaration, which declaration? It is Material Declaration. G20 minister recognized that poverty alleviation, food security and sustainable food system are key to ending hunger. So this is a very good point. It can become in prelims, and what given in that G20 members have recognized that what poverty alleviation, food security and sustainable food system are the key to ending hunger. What are the keys for ending the hunger? Okay, it's poverty elimination, poverty alleviation, food security, it's food security, sustainable food system. Okay, now the Material Declaration reflects the Indian concern for the welfare of small and medium farmers, promoting local food cultures and recognizing agri diversity. जो मेटल डिक्लेरेशन है वो क्या रिफ्लेक्ट कर रहा है? वो इंडिया की कंसर्न रिफ्लेक्ट कर रहा है किसके लिए? फार्मर्स के लिए. क्या चाहते हैं? वेलफेयर ऑफ द स्मॉल एंड मीडियम फार्मर्स, प्रोमोटिंग द लोकल फूड कल्चर, एंड इज अ वेरी गुड थिंग फॉर वेलफेयर द सच काइंड ऑफ पीपल, स्पेशली द फार्मर्स. External Affairs Minister S. J. Shankar tweeted in June 21 from Rome. Okay, now read from here. There are many reasons why India is well placed to champion the ideas and really commitments, and it takes over the presidency of G20 for a year starting the December 1, 2022. So India is going to have the presidency of G20 from December 1, 2022, and India wants a kind of welfare for the farmers, and so these are the concern in this particular editorial. So this is about the food security and the G20 presidency, what the concern faced earlier and what is upcoming and India's presidency this year. Now next para. Leading the conversation. India's journey in the last 50 years provides learning on sustaining growth in food grain प्रोडक्शन एंड इम्प्रूविंग फूड सिस्टम. इंडिया की जो जर्नी है 50 साल से हम लोग देख रहे हैं वो क्या कर रहा है? सस्टेनिंग द ग्रोथ इन फूड ग्रेन प्रोडक्शन एंड इम्प्रूविंग द फूड सिस्टम. वेरी गुड पॉइंट. One of the India's greatest contributions to equity in food is the National Food Security Act 2013. So we all know regarding this act, and this is a very good act regarding the food security, which anchors the target for the public distribution system, midday meal scheme, and integrated child development services. Okay, so this is a very good point. Today, India's food safety nets collectively reach over 1 billion people. It's a very, very good for India that they reach the billion of the people through its act, National Food Security Act. Okay, and in that what happens, there is a different criteria for the rural and urban areas. So read that act carefully. This is a very good example for writing in the mains, and you all should know regarding this act. Okay, slowly and gradually we also discuss various of the things, but right now this we are discussing this editorial only. Okay, we'll take the further topics of such acts. Now, since independence, in the bottom para, since independence, India initiated policy measures, land reforms, public investment, institutional infrastructure, new regulatory system, public support, and intervention in the agri market and prices, and agri research extension. So these are some facts and the various reforms that India is taking in the agriculture sector, and various of the things related to the food security. Come over here. 1991-2015 period saw the diversification of agriculture, with greater focus being given to the horticulture, dairy, animal husbandry, and fisheries sector. Okay. The established learning encompassed elements of nutritional health, food safety, and sustainability. And what happens with all these points like horticulture, dairy, and dairy, animal husbandry, and all? It is very important to have the nutritional health, food safety, and sustainability. Right now, in the past 3 years, while responding to the pandemic, India had set a global example in alleviating hunger by bringing the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. This is very good Yojana for the India during the time of pandemic, when there was a COVID crisis, and many of the families who are below the poverty line, they were not able to get the food. So it's a very good scheme run by the government, and it helped various people for getting the food. Now, though the mechanism of purchases of the cereals from farmers, the government was able to provide a swift and resilient response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The same point that I have told you. Avoid supply chain disruption, economic shock using its robust public distribution system, and new measures, and underline how critical food and social safety needs are to achieving the right to food and dignity of its population. And it's very important that if the government is providing some kind of welfare to the people, then it must reach to the people who are in really need of that. There are many loopholes in between. Many of the people, many of the brokers are not are creating the some miss things, so that the right thing not reach to the people who are really in need of this. So it should be in check properly, and this is a very good example for the government regarding this scheme, Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, Anna Yojana, so that the food reach to the needy people in the time of crisis. Now, international trade is crucial to ensure access to inputs, goods, and services to produce safe, nutrition, affordable food. International trade should be held in a very good way, and there shouldn't be no any kind of loopholes, so that they would produce any kind of problem regarding the various export and import things. The Material Declaration also emphasizing keeping international food trade open and strengthening the global, regional, and local diversified value chains for safe, fresh, and nutritious food, as well as promoting a science-based, holistic, One Health approach. So what's the Material Declaration also emphasize that there should be the open food trade, and there should be the diversified chain value for the fresh and nutritious food, and science-based, holistic approach should be there. Okay. Now, sorry. In the face of a climate change and a sudden decline in wheat and harvest, decline in the rice production, India formally announced an export ban on wheat and rice. What happens? There are some climate change and many of the crises faced by India, so what India has announced to export the ban of the wheat and rice. Okay, however, it maintained a flexible approach to help countries like Afghanistan with humanitarian aid and others such as the Bangladesh, Egypt, Yemen with commercial supplies in collaboration with the respective government. And it's a very good thing if India is banning such things due to the climate crisis, and for giving the people of the own country is very much important. But if there comes the thing for the humanitarian aid, then India is not lag behind. The India supporting the various countries like Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Egypt, Yemen. Okay. Now, last para, bottom para, 5 action points. Now, read with me the 5 action points are very much important for your answer writing also, and this is the editorial for the GS3. So, read it with me carefully. There is also an opportunity to fast track the process and commitments that were started through the pioneering United Nations Food System Summit held by the G20 leadership for global food system transformation to achieve the sustainable development goals by 2030. So what happens? There is also an opportunity to fast track the process and commitments that was started by the United Nations Food System Summit, which किसने start किया? United Nations Food Summit System Summit ने held by the G20 leadership. किसके लिए? For global food system transition, क्या achieve करना है? Sustainable development goals by 2030. Okay, are you getting it? The summit created a mechanism focused on 5 identified action tracks. तो what? 5 identified action tracks. तो ठीक है, मेरे साथ पढ़ो. Ensure access to safe and nutritious food for all. What? First point is ensure access to safe and nutritious food for all. Shift to sustainable consumption patterns. Boost nature positive production, advance equitable livelihood, and build resilience, vulnerabilities, blocks, and stress. So this is a very good point, and you should know it. These are very good points for writing the answer writing. Okay, and it also comes in prelims in the form of objective kind of, like, okay, so you should keep in mind. Now, the war in Ukraine and the restriction on the export of wheat have shown how dependent nations are on a single source of global food supply. We have seen there was a war among the Ukraine and Russia, and so that there is a restriction on the export of wheat, and it affected various of the countries. So this is showing a reality that how much dependent various countries on a single supply of food. On a single supply of particular product like wheat from Ukraine. This vulnerability is linked with the production being impacted by the changing weather and disruption in the availability of inputs. It is important to note the vulnerability visible in food productions, food grain production and supply, and the availability with regards to export will also raise the growing demand of India's wheat and rice. So there is also, if there is a restriction from the Ukraine, so there is a growing demand of the India's wheat and rice, and still due to the climate change, India is also banning the export of wheat. Then this is not the this is a kind of challenge regarding the grain food security and the open trade. Okay, over the decades, the government of India has institutionalized buying grains from farmers and food stock as a strategic reserve for national food security. Okay, the minimum support price has encouraged farmers to produce and protect them from financial fluctuations. So what in India, government buying from the farmers, so they institutionalize that particular process, and they also announce a minimum support price that encourage the farmers to have a more production. This process has protected people, especially the most vulnerable and the poor, during the difficult times. So if the MSP price is announced earlier, then there is a kind of security from the farmer side. If any distress come, then there is no problem because they have some kind of security from the government side. Okay, such measures which are context driven are needed for managing the uncertainties that have become the new normal for and ensuring the food security for high population countries and many other countries across the globe. There is now read here. There needs to be greater investment in agriculture. हमें एग्रीकल्चर में ज़्यादा इन्वेस्टमेंट करने की ज़रूरत है. फूड सेफ्टी नेट्स की ज़रूरत है फॉर द पुअर एंड वल्नरेबल. न्यू वेज ऑफ फार्मिंग हमें चाहिए एंड डाइवर्सिफाइड लाइवलीहुड्स. वी नीड टू एक्सपेंड साउथ साउथ कॉपरेशन टू शेयर द एक्सपीरियंसेस ऑन फूड एंड एग्रीकल्चर प्रोडक्शन एंड मेक make expanded efforts to share India's experience for the countries in Africa and Asia, because India is leading now, because India is a transition from the food deficit nation to the food surplus nation. So India is kind of a role model for the various of the countries, and now India is going to lead the leadership of G20 that is going to be held in December. So this is a very good time for the India and other countries to cooperate and discuss the things in a well defined manner. So this is the whole article for today, and thank you, and I hope you liking my session. So thank you and have a nice day.